new babe.
So what's good, TMG fam? It's your boy L, and I'm back with another reaction, man. How y'all feel? Welcome back to the channel. Salute. So listen, y'all, this one here is a sad one, man. Really sad. I'm just now hearing about this story of a driver who killed a mother and her baby while street racing. Shout outs to all my Tampa Bay, Florida family, man. Shout outs to all y'all down there in Florida. This story right here is like I said, I'm just hearing about it. I don't know too much about it other than the title and the description. But we're going to check it out and hear about it, man. The judge is going to sentence him and all that type of stuff like that. So we're going to check the story out down there, man. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. Join the fam. And for those who are still out there hating, man, we love y'all. But run the likes up, baby. Let's go. Let's check the story out.
Right now, breaking news on News Channel 8.
I would say, Jesse, I love you with all my life, and hopefully we can save your best friends, which are the mamas of this town.
Nearly 3 years after a tragic crash on Bayshore Boulevard killed a mother and her young daughter, the teenager behind the wheel has learned his fate. Cameron Herron was sentenced to 24 years in prison. Good evening, I'm Keith Kate.
I'm Jennifer Lee. Thank you for joining us. The emotional day of testimony lasted well into the evening before the judge.
So 3 people lost their lives because he pretty much lost most of his life right there. 24 years, bro. It's not worth it, man. Street racing, not worth it. I know y'all keep seeing all these Fast and Furious movies be made, man, and they make it look cool, bro. But this is the side of it that they don't show you, man. This is the dangerous side to everything that they don't show you.
Made his decision. 8 on your side's Justin Shecker was in the Tampa courthouse. He joins us now live with reaction from the family of Jessica and Lilia Robinot. Justin.
Jen and Keith, good evening. The victims' family members spoke about how it happens on Bayshore Boulevard has and will continue to haunt them. They told the judge they wanted the maximum sentence of 30 years. Let's show you that moment when Cameron Herron learned his punishment.
I thought they was going to talk about. We're going to check out the sentencing on this video. Let's check out this video. This is the actual sentencing. Bro, look at this kid, man. Look at him. So young. Look at him. Eyes super wide, bro. I'm pretty sure by now he realized he made a terribly horrible mistake. But look how young he looks, man. That hurts, bro, to see a kid so young who has so much life in front of him, it be taken away because of just a poor lapse in judgment on his part, man, that ended up being something deadly. You know what I mean? It's sad, bro. That's sad. Just look at him, man. You can see it.
All right, good evening, everyone. Is the state ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is the defendant ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Sorry, it took me a little bit longer than anticipated, but there was a lot of information to consider. Let me just start by saying that as multiple people have observed, that this is a particularly difficult case because there's really nothing that the court can do that's capable of fixing the harm that has been caused to the victims.
Now, right there, that judge just showed you his human side. Like, not all judges are corrupt. You know what I mean? You could tell that this case is really weighing heavy on him. You know, because like I said, man, it's a kid sitting in front of you. You know, we all were there at some point in time. We were there. We were all kids. Did the most stupidest of things. And had it gone wrong, a lot of us could be in a situation similar to him. I'll be the first to sit here and tell you, man, it's a lot of dumb things that I did that could have gotten me into something like the same situation. You know what I'm saying? So the judge sitting there telling you, this was hard, bro. I don't, I wouldn't want to be in his position right now. I'll be honest with you, fam. No, ma'am, no, sir. No, ma'am, no, sir. I wouldn't want to be in his position to have to read this ruling, those the jury, I wouldn't want to be in their position at all.
So that being said, I've got to start with the law. I'm bound by the law, and the law gives me a guideline for how to analyze an appropriate sentence in this case. So I want to start with the Camacho case. It's really the first thing I need to address is whether or not the court's going to depart from the minimum in this case, which is 222 months, or approximately 18 and a half years in the Florida State Prison as a minimum. The Camacho case, as Mr. Fitzgibbons pointed out and argued, lays out really a three-factor test. Is there a valid legal basis for departure? Is there competent substantial evidence that the facts support an application? Or so do the facts apply to the departure basis that is being asserted? To both of those questions, I answer those yes. There is a valid legal basis for departure, and there is competent substantial evidence that would support a departure. And really, I'd find that as to all of the departure bases argued, with the exception of the disparity argument. I'll just comment on that one for a moment. The defendant has argued that an available basis for departure is the disparity between the guidelines and the sentence that Mr. Barano got. I don't agree with that. I agree that disparity could potentially be an available legal basis for departure. But in this case, I don't think it applies because I do think that there are important substantive differences between the facts as applied to Mr. Barano and the facts as applied to Mr. Herron. The state's put those on the record. I won't elaborate on it too much other than to say I think that the difference, that the age of majority for Mr. Herron is one of those. But mostly I just think that the facts are different as between those two defendants. And so I don't believe that the facts in this case support that as a departure basis, because I believe that a disparity in sentence between Mr. Barano and Mr. Herron is appropriate in this case. That brings me to the third question of should essentially the third factor under the Camacho case is should the trial court depart? And the court in this case is going to decline to depart. So I'm answering that question in the negative. The trial court in this case is not going to depart. And I don't reach that decision lightly. When evaluating an appropriate sentence, I will start with Florida Statute 921.002. It was pointed out several times the primary purpose of the criminal punishment code in Florida is to punish. And I've got to take into account the severity of the primary offense and the circumstances surrounding the primary offense. When I take into account circumstances and severity, a lot of what I'm taking into account really when I sentence is intent and harm. And in this case, there wasn't any evidence, and nor does the court believe that there was any specific intent to do harm, in this case to the victims. But there was intent to drive at an egregious speed, 102 miles an hour, regardless of the consequences and regard.
102. 102, man. And if he hit them at that rate of speed, that is sad, bro. Like he said, man, there was no intent, but him driving that reckless, he has to abide by the law for the punishment to which will be due to this young man. And it's sad and it's unfortunate, bro.
Regardless of who that ended up harming. And then the second part of that, the second component, is the harm caused. And in this case, that it's just impossible to have greater harm than the harm that occurred in this case, which was the loss of a mother, loss of a baby, and really the loss of a family as it existed when this occurred. I did consider, I also want to make a record, I did consider sentencing Mr. Herron as a youthful offender, but for the same reasons that I'm discussing, I didn't think sentencing him as a youthful offender was appropriate. I agree that youthful offender was something that the court could have done. I did consider it. I carefully considered it. But the court just found that due to the serious nature of these offenses, the extreme nature of the conduct, and again, the level of harm, that a youthful offender sentence was not appropriate. So given that the court is not departing, the guidelines call for a sentence of essentially 18 and a half years at a minimum, and 30 years as a maximum. And the court doesn't find that either the minimum or the maximum is appropriate in this case. I've said it several times, the serious nature of the offense, the egregious nature of the conduct, and mostly the harm that's been caused prevent me from putting this as a bottom of the guidelines minimum case. But the departure bases argued by the defendant did provide some reason not to put it at the top of the maximum. And specifically, the court did take into account that the defendant's 18, certainly responsible for his actions, and he's being held accountable for his actions. But the age of 18, the court finds it is a mitigating factor and shouldn't put this at a maximum. Also, the complete lack of prior criminal history is something that the court considered as preventing this from being at the top. So having said all that, the court is going really toward the middle between the minimum under the guidelines and the maximum punishment permitted under Florida state law. So
is it just me, or does it seem like he can't even look the kid in his eye? It's hurting the judge so much, man. He keep looking down. He looks up every now and again, but it doesn't look like he's looking towards him. I can't really tell, but it just feels like it's eating this judge up inside, because it would be me as well, because I could look at that kid and be like, that could be my son, or that could be me, and that would be a tough thing to process, bro.
Count one. Vehicular homicide. The court's going to adjudicate the defendant guilty, sentence him to 9 years in Florida State Prison. On count two, same charge, court will adjudicate the defendant guilty, sentence him to 15 years Florida State Prison, and that'll run consecutive to count one, for a total 24 years Florida State Prison. Count three is a misdemeanor, unlawful racing on a highway, so the court will adjudicate the defendant guilty, sentence him to time served. Give credit for time served, I believe, 2 days. Court will impose mandatory court costs. Mr. Herron, you have given up the right to appeal the determination of your guilt or innocence. You do have 30 days to appeal the sentence of the court. I'll direct the bailiffs to take Mr. Herron into custody.
That was rough to see, man. That was rough to see. I'm gonna finish checking out the other part of this video now that we've got the verdict. We can jump back to this video, but that was rough to see. And look at this, man. Look at this picture here, bro. There was a baby in that. A mom probably pushing that stroller, man. It almost brings tears tears to your eyes, man. Any of you have kids, young kids, you couldn't fathom that thought, man. Any husbands, you know what I mean? Her husband now has no wife, no child. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what the judge was alluding to, man. Like, you know, every action has a reaction, basically. And he was carrying out the reaction for the action that the 18-year-old kid had committed, which was this crash, killing ultimately a mother and a child. You know what I'm saying? So he was doing it. That's tough, man. Whew. Like I said, I was just hearing about this thing. I was like, man, I got to cut the camera on and sit down and chop it up with the fam on this type of stuff, man. Because although you may have a kid that's getting ready to bark out into a journey of driving and getting his learners and stuff like that, man, you want to remind them, bro, it's tempting to get out there and do something reckless, but this could be the outcome, man. So let's check out the rest of this story.
Tragedy on Tampa's Bayshore Boulevard.
When it first...
Little girl, Robin Olds and his family.
Let me go back to the part. There we go.
Bayshore Boulevard has and will continue to haunt them. They told the judge they wanted the maximum sentence of 30 years. Let's show you that moment when Cameron Herron learned his punishment.
Sentence him to 9 years in Florida State Prison. On count 2, same charge. Court will adjudicate the defendant guilty. Sentence him to 15 years Florida State Prison, and that'll run consecutive to count 1.
David Robin Olds and his family waited nearly 3 years for justice after he lost his wife and little girl in the May 2018 tragedy on Tampa's Bayshore Boulevard.
When it first happened, you could have told me 80 years and I still would have said it's not enough. We're compassionate people, you know. We're sympathetic and empathetic. Believe it or not, we do feel something for the defendant.
After hours of emotional testimony,
can't blame. I'm assuming that's the father and the husband, and you can't blame him for his emotion, you know. And he said he was honest. To be clear, he was honest. You know, I do feel something, but even if you'd told me it was 80 years, it wasn't enough. You know, I no longer have my kid. I no longer have my wife, my rib, you know what I mean? I no longer have that. You know what I mean? A piece of me is dead now. It's a hole in my heart that can never be, you know, fixed. Nah. But then there is a side that feels empathetic and feels some type of way for the defendant. But prayers to him, man, that he finds the strength to continue. Because I would be in a loony bin right now, just in a corner, just messed up.
The judge sentenced 21-year-old Cameron Herron to 24 years in prison.
Although this won't bring my wife...
Oh, 21-year-old. I thought he was 18. Might have been 18 at the time. Look, I don't know.
Back. I hope that this sentence will inspire younger folks to behave in a manner that is appropriate amongst our streets.
Herron pleaded guilty in late December to vehicular homicide and unlawful racing. Prosecutors say he topped 100 miles per hour in his Ford Mustang before striking 24-year-old Jessica Robinholt and 21-month-old Lilia Robinholt. Herron didn't speak in court. His defense attorney read an apology.
I am so sorry for what I did and what I caused.
Attorney John Fitzgibbons argued Herron should receive the same 6-year prison sentence as John Barano, the then 17-year-old driver who witnesses say was racing Herron before the deadly crash. But Judge Christopher Nash disagreed.
It's just impossible to have greater harm than the harm that occurred in this case, which was the loss of a mother, loss of a baby, and really the loss of a family as it existed.
After sentencing, the family shared a message of wanting to honor Jessica and Lilia by making the city of Tampa safer.
We ask that you partner with us to finally put an end to the street racing culture. Your city is only as safe as your streets.
And State Attorney Andrew Warren says he hopes this sentence provides some comfort and closure to Jessica and Lilia's families. The judge did say Cameron Herron has 30 days to appeal his 24-year prison sentence. We're live tonight in downtown Tampa. I'm Justin Shecker, 8 on your side.
It's tough, bro. That's a tough one. You know what I'm saying? That is a tough one, man. Prayers again to the family, the husband, and you know, you never want to see that type of thing happen, man. Y'all be safe out there, all right? It's your boy L. Till the next reaction, I'm out. Peace. Y'all stay solid, man. Hey.